G'day and welcome to Beyond Sobriety, a podcast where you'll hear real stories of recovery and resilience come to life. I'm Michael and I'm an alcoholic, your host and fellow journeyer on the road to sobriety. As someone who has walked the path of addiction and found solace in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I understand the challenges and triumphs that come with striving for sobriety. And it's with this understanding and empathy that we've created this podcast. Our purpose here at Beyond Sobriety is simple yet profound: to provide a platform where individuals can share their experience with alcoholism openly and authentically. Through candid conversation, personal narrative, and expert insights, we aim to inspire hope, foster understanding, and offer a beacon of light to those still navigating the shadows of addiction. We'd love for you to be a part of this growing community. If you find value in the stories that you hear today, please consider liking and leaving a comment and sharing this episode with somebody who might benefit from hearing it. Your support will help spread the message of hope and resilience to more people who need it. I'm Michael and I'm an alcoholic, and this is Beyond Sobriety. Hi guys, Michael here. Unfortunately, we weren't able to secure anybody to interview today, so you're stuck with me. I'll try and make sure that it's not as long as some of the other ones, as I don't really find myself too interesting. And I'm sure many other people don't either. But I did have something on my mind that I really wanted to share. I've mentioned this to a few of the people in my support network, such as my sponsor and some other friends, but I really wanted to get your opinion on it. So please feel free to comment or contact me on our Facebook page if you have any kind of similar stories or anything to add. I'm approaching my 4th birthday of being sober, and I honestly can't believe how far I've come in that time. It's been an amazing journey, and I honestly wouldn't change a thing. I honestly thought that I'd had shared all my drinking stories and had gotten all that stuff out a long time ago. However, the other day I met up with an old friend of mine. It was ANZAC Day and he was an ex-serving member. And so we had a lot of good times to share and a lot of memories to reminisce on. One of the times was when I went away for a friend's wedding approximately 6 or 7 years ago. To put this in context, I'd always been a closet drinker. Nobody knew that I drank. I tried to hide it from all my friends and all my family. However, I was going through a particularly low point and I thought, you know what, why not? So I drank openly during that wedding. Needless to say, there was a lot of blackouts. There's a lot of time during that night I do not remember. The place was just on the New South Wales, Queensland border, and we had flown in and were staying there overnight to go to our mate's wedding, which was being held at his sister's property, I believe. They had a campground. There was people camping in tents, but it was classy. It was really nice. They had a lot of things going on there. They'd hired large marquees and big bonfire, and it was a beautiful wedding. Now, I started drinking at the start of that service, and I did not stop. I put away a large amount of booze. Let me just put it that way. And as I said, there was a lot I don't remember about that night, but my friend did. And he reminded me of a lot of it just recently. In his words, the way I acted, he said it was very similar to the Hangover movie. He said there was a time that somebody had ripped my shirt open and I was walking around just aimlessly with no idea what was going on, with my shirt all ripped open. At one point in the night, there was a woman that said she had lost her purse. And so we all got together and we were diligently looking. And he said that I was diligently looking as well. And this happened and went along for a good half hour or so until I came up to him and said, I hid her purse 2 hours ago and threw it on top of her tent, and then laughed and walked off. He said, we've all been looking for this purse for hours. He goes, and you were really looking as well. So I don't know if I'd forgotten and just remembered, but I don't remember any of that. There was another time where he said, I walked by the campfire. He goes, I didn't even have any pants on. And I just was like chatting to people like normal. It's like, hey guys, how are you? They're like, oh, hey, where's your pants? And I was just like, just ignored them. This is coming from somebody who has a job or had a job where drinking large amounts is almost considered a rite of passage and a norm. It's normal to drink a lot. Now, to frame this, I see people get drunk at pubs and get messy and all that stuff. I get that. But there seems to be something that takes place when a group of Australian people, or any people probably, go away and they're away from their families and they're with all their mates and they go get drunk. Like you hear the crazy stories that come out of people who go away to Bali. Now imagine that on steroids when you think about defence personnel that have been away from their family, isolated either on a ship or in a war zone, and then they finally get to cut loose and go to a place where there's almost no consequences for their actions. So he and I had both seen that. And he said to me that night at the wedding, he'd very rarely to never seen anybody as drunk as I was. So yeah, it must have been bad. It must have been a pretty bad night. But you know what? We got together and we laughed about it, and it was just kind of shrugged off, and it was no big deal. You know, there were a lot of other things he said, which don't add to the point I'm going to try and get to in a minute. But you know, we sit back and we laugh, and there's a whole thing. Sometimes when you're in a situation and you can't wait to get out of it, when you do finally get out of it, and I'm probably explaining this really bad, you look back on that situation almost with rose-colored glasses, and you think of how good it was, and you remember all the good times. I'll give you an example. I was in the Navy for 11 years, and about a year after I got out of the Navy, I was in what's called the active reserves, which means you can get called up and asked to do time and service. Now, I was called up and said, look, we've got a ship going to, I can't remember where, it doesn't matter. Got a ship going away for a month. They're down a person with your skill set. Would you like to fill in? And I was low on work at the moment, so I said, sure, why not? And because I had lots of fond memories, and I still do have fond memories of the Defence Force and my time in the Navy. But after 2 days, I was walking on that ship and I couldn't go home. I couldn't call my family. I couldn't see my kids. I couldn't go to the shop. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't go for a walk. I couldn't pat my dog. And I was there going, what the hell am I doing back here? And I called my wife when I got to there. I said, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, I'd left that life behind because of all the negative things and the time away from my family. And yet I went back with some kind of romantic idea of thinking how good it was going to be. And what I realized after talking to my mate and having a good laugh is I looked back at that time in the same way going, man, that was fun. And I do remember having a reasonably good night and waking up with a big headache and people making fun of you, but you're one of the guys and all that stuff. But I guess there might be a trap that I'm going through. I don't know if anybody else has gone through it, and I'll be really interested to hear or to get your comments on this. But there might be a trap that other people have gone through that you, after a while of being sober, you look back on your time drinking and all you see are the good things, the fun and the friendship and, the craziness of it all. And I guess that freedom of just being able to almost do whatever with, what's seen to be, but there isn't, consequences. And I was talking to somebody else about this, and I think they recognized it better than me. And they said, yeah, but, how does that make you feel? And I said, well, I value my reputation. I don't want to be known as the guy who got pissed off his face at my mate's wedding. I don't want to be the thing that everybody remembers at that night going, oh, do you remember this? Yeah. Oh, Michael was so off his face. He was pissed as, do you remember this? And then they're remembering all the negative things about you. I don't want my mate to think of his wedding and his wife to think back and go, oh, it was a great day, but Michael ruined it. And that's all they can think about when they think of that special time. Or that poor woman who, I hit her purse for a while and she was frantically looking for it. I don't want to be known for that. I don't want to be that. Luckily nothing serious happened, but I had no idea about a lot of those things. I knew, I remember, picking up somebody, like physically picking them up, throwing them over my shoulder. I remember certain, parts of conversations. I remember having a glass of wine and then throwing the glass into the creek because, why the hell not? I did that to about probably 20 glasses. Kind of feel bad now for the catering company. But they're the bits I remember. But the bits you don't. Can you imagine waking up the next day and going, yeah, you got in the car, drove home and you killed a family. And I know there's people that have that experience and you go, that's not me. There's a saying and it goes like this. Drinking takes you further than you want to go, keeps you there longer than you want to be, and costs you more than you want to spend. And that's what it did to me. The reason this came up with my friend is because, ANZAC Day, we met up at the pub and he goes to me, do you, let me get you a drink? I said, no, I've given up drinking. And he goes, oh, why? I said, you saw how I was like at the wedding. And he goes, yeah. And that's how it all got started. Hi everyone, I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. This podcast is all about sharing real stories of resilience, recovery and hope. Stories that remind us that we're not alone in this journey. If you'd like to support this work and help us reach more people, there are a few simple ways you can make a difference. Take a moment to like this episode, leave a comment or share it with someone who you think might benefit from hearing it, whether it's a friend, family member or somebody in your recovery community. Your support could touch the lives and inspire someone in their road to sobriety. Your stories are important. They remind us that we are not alone and help us all stay sober. What we're doing here creates a space where people can share their experiences, feel understood, and find inspiration to keep moving forward. By supporting the show, you're helping to amplify those voices and ensure that more people who need to find this message can. If you'd like to share your story and be interviewed, please email me at beyondsobrietyaa@gmail.com. Every journey is unique, and your experience could be exactly what someone needs to hear to find hope, strength, or inspiration. This podcast thrives on real stories from real people, and your voice has the power to make a difference in somebody's life. Don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to connect and discuss how your story can be a part of Beyond Sobriety. Thank you for your support. Together we can continue to make a difference. Now, let's get back to the episode. And then he told me how, he used to be a big drinker. But he goes, look, I don't drink much anymore. He goes, this will be it for me. I'm a bit pissed now. He goes, but hey, it's ANZAC Day. He goes, I won't have another drink for a couple of months. And even then it might be one beer because somebody's coming over. He goes, I just don't do it anymore. He goes, I can't keep up. I'm getting old, or whatever it might be. And that's where I saw the difference. Whereas he was a big drinker and he knew how to have fun, but it wasn't that compulsion to go, hey, I can do this all the time. I don't know about you guys, but I take things to the extreme. I would take it to the absolute limit. If I enjoyed something, I would do it. Even now, I've got to be careful because if there's some lollies in the cupboard and I like those lollies, I'll have one and then I'll be like, oh, I'm finishing the bag. So it's better I just don't buy lollies. So there's, my poor kids, so there's no lollies in our house. But if I like it, I'll start and I won't be able to stop. I'll be like, well, what's stopping me? Why would I want to stop something that I'm enjoying? And that's the way I was with drinking. It was, why would I want to stop something which I'm really enjoying? Over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, I've been looking for another job. A lot of the jobs are closing and I've been going to a couple of interviews. And I was at an interview for a position. And the woman there was describing the workplace and the environment. And she was saying how good it is, how jovial. And she was explaining how much they drank. And she was doing it like a selling point to try and go, look, we're a great place to work. People enjoy working here because we get access to booze. The owner of the company is some, multi-millionaire. And by the end of his birthday night, he was crowd surfing and we all had a great time on his property somewhere and all this stuff. And I was there going, you're saying this like a selling point. This doesn't appeal to me. There's nothing worse than being around drunk people when you're not drunk. It's like the absolute pits. You're just there going, I don't want to be around your slurred speech. You're too close. People talk close to you. They yell, the aggravation. You don't know what they're going to be. And hey, that was me. I have been there. And I was there looking at this woman going, this is like a selling point. And I was going, I decided not to tell her that I'm a non-drinker, that I don't drink. But I thought, no, I won't. Maybe if I make it to the second interview, I might mention something or maybe not. That's my business. It's no one else's. But it's just about that culture and expectation to drink and drink to excess, and that a good time cannot be had without it. I guess that's okay for a lot of people like my mate. He would probably go, hey, that sounds like great. I'll be happily getting drunk with you guys at the boss's 70th birthday or whatever it might be. He'll be right on in there. But, the next 2 months, he'll be fine. It would send me into a spiral downwards where I could lose my whole family, my job, my life, my kids, and God knows where it could end. Could wake up out of a blackout and figure out that you're on the side of the road because you've got in a car accident. Because let's face it, I don't think I've spoken to anybody in these interviews that I've been doing for the podcast. Most people have drunk drives. I think there was one person that was really shocked because they were tempted to drunk drive. And I was there going, are you kidding me? I used to do that daily. If I was on the road after 4 p.m. every day, I was drunk. And, you go, all right, there's a breath test usually here. I'll go around this way. I'll go around that way. There were times I had my whole family in the car. And my wife was like, oh, why did you make this turn over here? I was like, oh, look, I just thought I'd try this new route to get home or whatever it might be. And she'd be like, why are you going this way? And it's because I knew that there was always a breath test on this road where I live. And I thought, I don't want to take the chance because I was off my face. but I was just trying to hide it. So yeah, I guess I've been reflecting over the last couple of weeks, well, since ANZAC Day, about, I guess the danger of looking back on things with those rose-coloured glasses. I guess it's those little creeps that you get, the little temptations that you get to go, look, was it that bad? Was it all, as bad as what you thought? What if you can control it? Until you find yourself, as I did, on a boat in the middle of the ocean going, what the hell am I doing back at work when I left this job because I hated it? The same way, that first drink, where's it going to lead? It might not lead anywhere the first time or the second time or the 10th time, but I know that after a few weeks, a few months, I'll be back drinking every day. I'll be there hiding it under the bed, around the car and doing this. And I wouldn't be able to work at the capacity I'm at. My earning potential would go down. Everything would go downhill. So yeah, look, just a short one today, guys. And look, unless you want to hear me again next week, which I'm sure you don't, contact me. Anyone from anywhere is welcome. I don't care what country you're located in. We can set a time to get together on Zoom. And I would love to chat and hear your story, because there's stories out there that need to be told. And I'm passionate about letting them out. And I want everyone to be able to have that opportunity to be able to tell people their story. Everything's safe. Everything's confidential. We treat that very seriously here at Beyond Sobriety. And so, look, let's just close it out together with the Serenity Prayer. And if you're there, take a second, maybe say it out loud with me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, everyone. Until next week. Thank you for joining us today on Beyond Sobriety. Just before we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a gentle reminder. If you happen to recognise anyone who shared their story on this podcast, I urge you to respect their anonymity and privacy. Let's create a safe space where individuals can feel empowered to share their experience without fear of judgment or disclosure. And if you found today's episode helpful or inspiring, I encourage you to share Beyond Sobriety with somebody who might benefit from it. Together we can spread awareness, support and hope to those still struggling with alcohol addiction. Remember, your feedback is invaluable to us. If you have any thoughts, suggestions or stories you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at beyondsobrietyaa@gmail.com. Thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, stay strong, stay sober, and remember, you're not alone in this journey. I'm Michael and I'm an alcoholic.